Okay, if we could, it is 5 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Pump Storage Advisory Committee meeting. This is the meeting originally scheduled for January 15th that got pushed due to weather. If we could, if everyone could just take a moment of reflection, thinking about what we're going to accomplish here today. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Any other disclosures? Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with the legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with the legislative services coordinator by 4 p.m. the day prior to the meeting. I don't believe we have any presentations, but we do have a deputation. Is that correct? All right. So if I could call on Pat Maloney.
Great, thank you. We got deputy mayor here anyway, and some of the council. I hope I don't cast too dark a shadow on the meeting. I'm just trying to get some information out, and hopefully council and the members here of the PSAC committee can catch a few pointers from it. Following the release of the Lidington Review by council, I would like to extend congratulations on our elected officials for at last providing some updates regarding TC Energy's pump storage project. This marks a notable step in sharing information with the community, I hope. The review suggests that the project presents an opportunity for Meaford to become a center of excellence in the field of complex energy technology, potentially putting our town on the map in this domain. However, Meaford is already well known and established. We are on the map. The suggestion that the pump storage project will make Meaford a leader must be scrutinized. In reality, the project risks making Meaford a hub for outdated, hazardous, costly, and inefficient energy technology. Furthermore, the initiative lacks tangible connections to our community. Visitors will not be welcome on the DND federal lands when this project is completed. There has been a persistent lack of meaningful engagement from council and the CAO, as far as I'm concerned. The multitude of letters and questions that I have submitted over the past 4 years remain unanswered. A recent Lidington visit seems to reinforce the council and CAO's singular focus on financial gain with little regard for potential consequences of this project. Their approach is reminiscent of people who deliver compelling stories without factual or honest evidence and then complain when their critics attack their approach. Our council appears to be neglecting their commitment to serve people of Meaford, instead prioritizing TC Energy's corporate interests, namely profits and financial incentives to the community. The pursuit of a lucrative community benefit agreement seems more about balancing budgets than improving operational efficiencies. The essence of this deputation centers on efficiency. While the Ludington Review claims the pump storage project in Meaford will achieve operational efficiencies of 75 to 78%. This is absurd. Actual efficiency will depend on measurements at the ESSA transfer station in Barrie, accounting for all frictional and electrical losses inherent to energy transmission systems. The most optimistic analysis suggests a best case efficiency of 69%, meaning 31% of the energy is wasted. This cannot be manipulated by anybody, by TCE or any of their engineers. That's simple facts. A straightforward proposal would be to require a performance guarantee from TC Energy and the government, committing to a minimum of 75% efficiency upon operation. Unfortunately, by the time this project is completed, the current council, CAO, and even TC Energy's engineers will likely be gone, eliminating any accountability to the Meaford community, which will be left with the consequences for decades. In closing, I urge council, the CEO, and other project supporters to consider arranging a tour of a battery storage facility, exploring innovative systems such as virtual power plants. And that could position Meaford as a leader for the right reasons. I encourage all involved to research VPP technologies and remain open to learning about promising alternatives that will serve your community rather than embarrass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Probably not.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, with that, I'll move to approval of the minutes from the November 13th meeting. If everyone reviewed the minutes, any questions or changes to them? No? If I could get a motion to Martin and a second. Howard, all in favor? It's taken 2 years, but we got it. All right, thank you. Okay, items for consideration. We have the two of them. The Ludington, Michigan pump storage visit summary, and we're that the committee has been sent a report, a summary report of that, and I think the CAO is going to present something to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in regards to this report, for the reality is, councils or the committees had this report for some time. It was actually on the agenda for the last time. As far as the purpose of the trip to Ludington, it was really just to get an idea of, some of the concerns that were raised, and getting an idea of the operations. Even in regards to the previous delegation, we have to remember that from a municipality's perspective, it's really the other agencies that deal with whether or not this is a feasible project. It's the Independent Electricity System Operator, ISO. They are the ones who it's their role to manage Ontario's electricity market and power system to ensure the reliability and the affordability. So I've heard all of the concerns about, is this a feasible, viable project? Is this a good way of producing energy? Quite frankly, from the municipality's perspective, it's not us. That's not our role. There are agencies that are going to determine through the assessment of whether or not this is something that the province will support. So going to Ludington, quite frankly, for me, it wasn't necessarily about the actual power plant. Because to be honest with you, I'm not an engineer. All I know is that plant is 52 years old. It just received its second 50-year license. As far as the Ludington, Pierre Marquette, and Mason County, I found that to be very, very informative, with members of those communities having been associated with that power generation for over 50 years, and most people to a person said they actually forget that it's there. So it's an interesting plant. There are a lot of similarities between Meaford and Ludington. Some people would think that the city of Ludington, because you're calling it a city, it's like 20,000 or so. I think it's about 7,600 people. So on the waterfront, has great fishing. We weren't there to promote the project. And quite frankly, I take objection to the fact that council and staff are looking at promoting this in any other way than it's a project that's could be taking place in the municipality. TC Energy has not made application as yet. Still, and that, you know, I have full confidence that when they do, they will give us the heads up. But if there's any direct questions in regards to the report, and with full clarity, I will say that when the offer to go to Ludington was made, the request from the town, from myself, was for consideration of members of PSAC being able to go on the trip. That request was denied by TC Energy. So I just want to be full, nothing to shake heads at. It's the reality. It was a trip that they put on. So I do think it would be well worth for individuals who actually are interested in understanding the project to go down and take a look at it. It is a much larger facility than the one that is being proposed in Meaford. Probably the key part on the plant piece is I've heard lots of concerns about, you know, will the reservoir fail? And, you know, once it's built, like who's inspecting? With today's technology significantly more advanced than it was 52 years ago, I can tell you that on an annual basis, the ground penetrating ultrasound rate and LiDAR that they do on the reservoir takes place annually. That is a requirement. So they are scanning the entire reservoir to see if there is any breaks or any cracks. There was early on, I believe it was in the 8th year, they did see that there was leakage. They drained it down, they filled it, and they didn't have a problem since. The one question that was raised that I found also very interesting was there an impact to the water table? And my first thought was, okay, they're taking the water from the lake. There wouldn't be much impact on the water table, where in fact there was. It actually raised the water table. The weight of the reservoir actually rose people's water table. So, which did create some issues. But they've rectified those issues. And again, 52 years ago, it's not something I would have thought would have taken place. But it just goes to show you just how big the reservoir is. And the last piece I'll just mention is for a nuclear plant. From what I understand, from full stop to full production. And with nuclear, there is no in between. It takes 72 hours to go from stop to start. With a pump storage facility, it takes 4.5 minutes. And this was called a black start technology. So if you recall in 2003, the year of the blackout, the big blackout, it was Ludington that actually really stopped the blackout because they were able to funnel energy. The water's essentially a giant battery. They went to diesel generator, and that kept things moving along so they could actually respond to that blackout as best as they could. So from a municipality's perspective, we're trying to gain information, but since I've come here, one thing I have learned, and it's not something that the public and those who have concerns about this proposed project, they're not going to love me hearing me say this, but there are lanes that we need to stay in. In this particular case, there's a number of agencies that each have lanes, and you know, in today's world, I'm going to say the lack of trust in governments is not helping us, but there are government agencies that are going to take a look at this proposed project from a viability perspective, from an environmental perspective. And for our municipality, it's not just about getting money. It's quite frankly, can we actually handle the ebb and flow of this proposed project? There could be 8 years where this municipality in this region could see 1,800 workers to build this plant. My concern, and I will say this to all, After year 8, it takes roughly 35 people to operate this plant. So we need to get our heads in a direction of figuring out how can our community handle the potential influx of people over the course of that construction, and then be sure that we haven't overbuilt to then see this lowering of the population, or come together as a group and figure out how can we actually maneuver past year 8 and still have some viability. So and again, that is a what if. That's what if this project goes. I will say the interesting thing, and I hope I'm not taking the deputy mayor's thunder, or Councillor Greenfield. We were at Roma last week, and the first time I'd ever heard that there is a direct correlation between the pump storage facility and Bruce C. So that was really the first time that those two energy projects have been at a provincial level sort of been tied together. My gut is telling me that if it's tied to Bruce C, which is a significant part of the province's push to be able to have enough electricity, I'm going to say the pump storage being connected to it is definitely something the province, I suggest, is going to push. So the one piece I'd like to add that's not part of this report, but I think it's very valuable, is we have initiated with Deloitte a community readiness study, a social economic community readiness study. We have started the stakeholder interviews. Members of PSAC and members of council will also be interviewed, and Deloitte will be putting that together and be presenting to PSAC as well as council a first draft of where our weaknesses are, where our opportunities are, to be able to inform the overall community. Where are our pressure points going to be if this project moves forward? We heard loud and clear in Ludington, their schools were not ready. It was funny, 52 years ago, they actually, their schools put their students in shifts. So half of the school students went in the morning, and then the other half went in the afternoon, because with 1,800 new people, the schools just weren't set up for it. So if we look at 1,800 here, we've already got a number of portables at our school. These are the things, these are the real community impacts that we need to sort of wrap our heads around ASAP. And that those are the things that we can help control. That's in our lane. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone from the committee have questions about the report? Obviously, other questions from what CAO has presented. Ginny?
Thank you for that information. I wish that was in the report, because in my opinion, the report read like a TC brochure. It did not give any objective questions and opinions to the project. And I think that's what I personally was looking for. And I'm disheartened that that really wasn't addressed. Like many of my questions that I personally had, didn't feel like they were really answered. So that was kind of very concerning. And it's interesting that you said that the PSAC committee wasn't invited, and I'm surprised that you wouldn't push for it, because it feels like that lacks integrity.
With all due respect, I didn't say you weren't invited. I actually asked for you to be invited. TC Energy said no, and we did push.
Okay, because don't you feel like that lacks integrity? Like that wasn't right. There was
On
no
whose part?
objective questions there.
On whose part?
Both the town, that they'd accept and say, no, we'll go, but nobody else will. And TCE for even doing that. Like, that's not right.
Understanding the roles of advisory committees, we made the ask. So no, I don't see where it lacks integrity on the municipality's part. So yeah.
My next point is the only good thing that I found come out of that report was that you addressed that it's 70% of their revenue. So if you were to flip that for Meaford, that means Meaford, because the purpose of our committee is what's our community benefit? Well, then flip that, we're 46 million is our ask, our baseline ask. If that's going to be 70% of Meaford's, you flip our 20 million in revenue that you currently have. So our ask is 46 from TCE. And that should be a minimum. So some of the questions I know I'd ask you, Shirley, which you didn't answer, how far away is it from the nearest house? That wasn't addressed, but something, if it was addressed, we can take that data and then turn it into part of this agreement. So if we're going to have to get new water to all those residents and factor in all those costs, that's a good piece of information to know, because right now that's with Ludington, that's probably not an issue they have. They're probably not building 10 meters from the nearest house that's existing. Right? So in Meaford, our ask might not be 46 million. It might be 150 million, because you have to pump water and deal with chemicals, toxins, turbidity that they didn't have to deal with, which you might have to deal with. So it's too bad that some of those questions weren't answered, because I think that would help you get to your number.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask one,
Sure.
member one, you said us having to get water to those residents. What residents would we have to get water to?
Anybody from basically Highway 26 to the Army base, there's no town water. So if that water is just brown and murky and full of toxins, those houses can't use their shore wells. The little Home Depot filter will not filter out what's coming out of that base and all that sediment. That bay is full of thousands of years of sediment. If TC is going to blast billions of liters down that turbine, it's not going to be crystal clear. I don't care what technology they put in place. You can even see from Ludington, there is a foggy area out in that water from that sediment. And it will be, if it's not in year 50, which they're at, but here it won't be crystal clear. Those first few years, they're going to be stirring up years of sediment. And so those houses, they can't, right now, if you look at your grid of where your water goes, look at where your tax bills go, and you'll see where they end. And it's basically around 26 somewhere. Everywhere north, there's no town water. I don't have a water bill, because I'm not on town water.
There's water in Leith.
No water, 26 to the Army base.
Yeah.
Nope,
On South
exactly.
Line.
Absolutely. I just want to make it clear that
Yeah.
there is water beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. There's none where you're proposing this project go.
Yes, Shirley?
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I very much appreciate the CAO's evaluation of our trip and of the report. It was a very successful venture, and there's only a couple of points that I thought I would add to that. I noted right away as soon as we drove into the facility, when you look out into the area where they draw water from, and clearly a turbine was operational at the time, and all you saw was just a very little ripple in the water, and it was clean and clear and blue as can be. That really was interesting to me. And the other thing that we noted as we walked around, as close as we could get, which I say was about 150 feet maybe from the top of a turbine, which will be a totally different structure here if this goes forward. You couldn't hear a thing. There was absolutely no vibration. I stopped and stood and I was listening and, expecting my feet to feel nothing. You feel absolutely nothing. You hear absolutely nothing. You see nothing. It's incredibly quiet. I also wanted to share from Roma as well that we are in conversations with the province, and we're looking for an increased level of communication from that level of government as things move forward, assuming that TCE does submit and that the environmental assessments go forward. We want to hear from that level of government, their perspective as well of what's happening. And coming back to Mr. Maloney's points, in my mind, it's our role to monitor this process, to be part of the process, to not necessarily support the process, but be available to it. Because, if we're not, my worry is that we'll get less information. I think it's just important for us to maintain, a positive relationship so as that we can be the recipient of all the information that we request. And coming back to your questions, Ginny, I have them with me, and we haven't had a PSAC meeting since we went to Ludington. So it's a bit scratched up because I was writing notes on the bus and so on and so forth, but I do have, and I can't answer them all right now at the mic because there's 34 questions. But the first one that you posed today, how close is the Ludington pump storage operation to the nearest residential neighborhood? Well, there are houses right outside the boundary of the plant. And there are a mixture of houses that were there before the plant was built and after. There are a number that were built after. And we asked the question, were residents expressing concerns? And absolutely not. And we talked, as the CAO said, to the council, the mayor and members of council and so on. But then when we met with the Chamber of Commerce, and I thought, okay, now I can quarter somebody. I'll admit there was a glass of wine served and I thought, I'll get, people in the corner and I'll ask them these kinds of questions. And it was the same answer. Nobody had any concerns whatsoever. And some people didn't even know what was going on up there. They just weren't at all bothered. And, in asking about, the neighbors, and they said they don't hear any concerns from them at all. So it was, that was interesting. But in any event, I wanted you to know that I did ask your questions. I do have them, but we haven't met, and I felt that it was important that everybody, have the same opportunity to hear any of the questions that you want to verbalize today. And if you want to meet after, if you want me to send you an email, whatever you want me to do, I can do it.
Yeah, I think answering them in writing would be ideal so that not just myself can hear them, but everyone in the town, because so many people have the similar questions. And that's why I originally asked for them to be part of the minutes so that we could read them before we came and everyone would be the same well-informed.
Okay, so I will look to Allison and our CAO for process, but your questions are here in the agenda. So if we wish written responses provided to those, is that something we can include in a next agenda, or how should we go about that?
Yeah, I think absolutely we can do it one of two ways. We can either put them on the next agenda. We could also have them put together, put them on the website prior to that. We can flog them as much as we want, but get them out to the PSAC members ASAP as well. And then there's nothing stopping us from putting the information out in the public as well.
Are there other inquiries from committee? Yep, Harley.
Through you, Chair Doug, to Mr. Everett. First of all, thanks very much for all the information you have given. It's very interesting. I'm just wondering you mentioned you talked to certainly the local Chamber of Commerce down there and some of the politicians, some of the residents there. My question may not have any relevance as far as the end result of this project, but that did you get any feeling of what the mood was, what the opinions were back 50, maybe almost 60 years from the locals? I can't believe that there were no concerns locally. Now, okay, I know this is America and it's a little different overall environment, even back in the early 1970s. But did you have an opportunity at a project that's 52 years old? This may be a poor example, but to me, it's something like people having lived by a factory for over 50 years. You become accustomed to it. It's part of your life. You become somewhat complacent with what goes on, somewhat accustomed to it. Did you hear from anybody who was around 50 years ago and at that time had some concerns? And if you did, were the concerns anywhere similar to what we're hearing today?
Yeah, so great question. I appreciate it, Councillor Greenfield. The individuals that we talked to from the two municipalities in the county, a lot of it was 50 years ago, they weren't prepared. Everything from, you know, the restaurants being able to provide food for 1,800 workers. You know, the roads, there was concerns about, you know, these little roads that, you know, were to individuals' houses that were now on a daily basis getting overrun by the contractors. One thing I did hear from, and the one individual that we met, actually, his family had the farm that was right adjacent to it. And the number of people, he said, that were coming, because you can imagine 52 years ago, I think it's safe to say health and safety probably wasn't top on the list. The number of people that were going out to see this construction. And they actually showed a video of the construction, and it was like their technique for construction and excavating was a little bit to be desired. But the biggest problem they probably had was the fish loss. And we had the benefit of the gentleman who was the first general manager of the plant. They brought him in with the chamber, and he gave us some really good insight because he was there 50 years previous. And he said, you know, back in that day, they just paid $1.4 million a year for fish loss. They paid the penalty. And then as more technology came, they said, why are we putting $1.4 million into the fines when all we have to do is put some nets out? And they monitor the nets every year. They have the scuba divers come in, check the nets and everything like that. So, but they still put $1 million a year into the fisheries. So they changed it, rather than just pay 1.4 million in fines, let's flip it and put $1 million into the fisheries. The biggest business in Ludington is actually the fishing charters. So it's, from that perspective, it's you know, there wasn't a lot of people saying anything really that negative. The one thing I will say that was the scary part for the early days was it was always identified as a location for a terrorism hit, because of being a power generation. And so they said that was the biggest concern that they had for years. I'm glad you mentioned just about, you know, when something is being proposed. As an individual that lived in Southampton in the 70s and 80s, I was there when Bruce Power was Douglas Point, and turned into what it is today. It wasn't popular in the 70s and 80s. Like, and we're talking nuclear. Like, we're talking a pump storage facility with water. Growing up, it was just down the road, a nuclear plant. And that nuclear plant, I remember as a kid, the beach in Port Elgin and Southampton was closed a lot. So now with today's technology, I will say Bruce C, it is safe to say that they have a social license because they know Saugeen Shores, Kincardine, Erin Elderslie, that whole area is what it is today because of Bruce Power. And they are proposing another Bruce C. And I'll just remind everybody, nuclear. And the communities are actually championing it. There are lots of naysayers, but the community is actually championing Bruce C. So their social license is something that I can tell you in talking with staff in Kincardine. The social license, but they've proven it. Over the years, they've proven it to be a success. So they'll have lots of people rolling their eyes, I'm sure. But so to that point, growing up in a location that 70s and 80s, it was not a popular thing. And if I'm sure that they're going to have some negative comments received for Bruce C, but the vast majority of the people will be supportive of that.
Yeah, Shirley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just going to add again to the CAO's comments and just setting aside the project first for a minute and just looking at the community of Ludington. And we see the population is pretty darn similar to Meaford, but looking at their downtown core and the vitality of it, and we were there certainly in an off season, the end of November, but they've got 3 full blocks of retail on both sides of the street. And, we're not talking the insurance and the hairdressers and so on, retail up and down the street and, lovely restaurants and so on. So clearly, there's money there, and the beach was just pristine and beautiful condos and so on that had been built, and they were all color coordinated and landscaped, and it was just beautiful. So you could see the impact of, what the community had done with, the additional tax revenue. And I just wanted to express that, again, setting aside whatever we think about the plant, just seeing that impact on the community was really interesting.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions that just as I went through the report. Did they identify any findings in the reservoir, if they're doing all sorts of studies on the reservoir, that it has been degrading and they've had to do work on it outside of, I know you mentioned 8 years in. Has
Yeah.
there been anything else?
No, so on an annual basis, they do the ground penetrating radar and LiDAR. There's actually, the other piece is there are channels at the base of the reservoir that if there is leakage, those channels collect the leakage, which then they would measure what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So they have not found any degradation of the reservoir. Gotta remember like that, and like the rebar is on 4-inch centers. Like the amount of structure that reservoir has, but as a requirement, those are required to be inspected. And there was, when they said that they received their second 50-year license, they are fully anticipating that the end of this next 50, there's life left in that facility. So yeah, no degradation has been found.
Okay. And can you go into a couple of places that mentions that one of the concerns of the local municipality was roads? And I get it, roads is a big problem during construction and we must address that. But 50 years later, what is the issue with the roads that they're facing?
I think the biggest issue with when we talked about the roads was Ludington doesn't receive any financial support from the plant because the plant is located in Pierre Marquette. So when you're in Pierre Marquette, the township, the roads are really good. Signage is beautiful. But you have to remember too, 75% of Pierre Marquette property levy is from the project, but it's a small amount of dollars. Like, because the way Michigan does their taxes, it's a different separation. This was a class B, but it's Ludington definitely does not get the financial support for the roads that Pierre Marquette does. Because you're right, after 50 years, there's very little traffic. And even the actual plant, the road to the plant is just a very quiet little road. And you go over the bridge and then there's gates. So like you can't, again, I don't want anybody to have the misconception that you can just drive up and like drive down to the plant area. No, there's gates and there's guards at that plant. So it's yeah.
70% of the tax base, way different than what we're gonna have in Meaford, I think. Not sure if the number is 100 million or what, but there's certainly something. What TCE is proposing now. Do we have a sense of what that is on a percentage basis for this municipality?
I would say there's two big things here. One is, I believe TC Energy is going to be making application for this to be as a regulated plant, as opposed to an unregulated plant. If it is a regulated plant, it's actually ISO that will be the ones who approves the actual amount, because ISO will look at it as part of the feasibility of this project. What's the cost of the power? But then what are the other costs related to the community benefit agreement? So right now, Strategy Corp is looking at collective or community benefit agreements, how they're equated. There are some that are equated based on the amount of energy being produced. There are others that you take, and regardless if this is on federal land or not, the model that we were introduced to in Michigan was you take the property taxes based on the value of the construction, and you base your payment based on that. There's a couple of other equations that you can use, but I do want to temper everybody's thought about, 20 million, 50 million, whatever. It really is going to be at the decision of ISO as to, is the payment the piece that makes this no longer viable? So again, we can propose, and even TC Energy and the municipality can agree, but it's ISO, which is the Independent Electricity System Operator. They are going to be the ones who ultimately say, yeah, that's doable. So
I just want to make sure I get that. So if the project proceeds under that methodology, ISO just can decide how much money the municipality can get?
they will rely heavily on the community benefit agreement negotiations. I can tell you that the discussions, sorry, I got some chatter in the background. ISO will look at the community benefit agreement negotiations, but the province has made it very clear the community has to be made whole. So whether or not that is X amount of dollars, we don't know. But in discussions I've had with management at ISO, it is something that is taken into account. What's the viability of the project?
Yep, Jim.
So how does that play into when you decide if your support is unconditional? So like, or condition, right now it's conditional. So is there a bar that you wouldn't go below in the municipality for a number that would be like, no, this isn't worth it? Like obviously 1.5 million is only like 7% of your tax base, which is obviously peanuts. Is there a number that would make it make sense for Meaford or no?
I'm through Mr. Chair. I'm glad the member was looking at the councillors, because that's a council decision.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I better provide an answer then, and thank you for the question, Jenny. I won't say a number, but I can tell you I have had conversations several times with one of the top figures at ISO that I see regularly at conferences. And she said the same to me last week when we were there, go high. And we've talked about a number, and it's like, wow. So yeah, I can't say what that is, but if she is saying go high, then, when she's going to be part of the decision making, then yeah, we'll definitely ask for the moon. I mean, we'll find somewhere in the middle, I imagine, but yeah, when I said a number to her, she didn't blink.
Would you factor the well-being of the town in Georgian Bay into that number? Like in case you're forever doing remediation or?
Well, and through the chair, absolutely. I mean, I know there's a perception out there that I'm all for this project and I'm pushing for it and so on and so forth. But people need to understand that I have concerns too, that I have great respect for the people who come forward and express their very sincere fears and worries about the environment. I understand that, and those issues will have to be met. We will have to understand what the mediation is going to be, or how they're going to prevent certain things, or how they're going to deal with these problems before, in my mind, from my position, I will ever put my hand up for a fully, a fully without conditions support for this project. I am nowhere near there yet. I'm only willing to pursue the process. I'm only in keeping my mind open to the process, because I think that's how we will get the most information. That's how we will have a relationship, and that's how inevitably we will be successful with a community benefit agreement if we follow along step by step and work within the process and express our concerns along the way as, the environmental assessments occur and so on. I think it's important that we have that dialogue with all the parties that are involved, and that we just, from my perspective, that we just encourage the process. And that's where I come from.
Yes, CAO.
Just as an aside, because I know, and I've heard lots of concerns about, is the process tainted? Like with the province, will they just push this through? And to be honest with you, I'm not going to get into that, because all I can tell you is there is a process. The one piece that I've learned over the last week and I think it was mentioned about a battery storage, like why aren't we doing battery storage? Well, one, we're not the ones who are going out asking for these. These are companies that are coming in. And in my opinion, there was a proposed battery storage facility being identified in Bruce County. Great project, but the process identified wrong location, and it was shut down as part of the environmental process. Like at the end of the day, they were trying to put it into a floodplain. But the process worked, because once the proposal was, and it was a like heavily supported battery storage that was in close proximity to the hydro corridor, which they need, but it was a non-starter. You're in a floodplain, you can't do it there. So I do believe these environmental pieces will be considered. I will also say, in talking to the province, like part of these processes, when we talk about the water, from a staff perspective, we are very, very concerned, and we have concerns, because like our water treatment plant is where it is. So staff is not pushing this project in a, like, this has to happen. I would tell you from a staff perspective, and anybody who's willing to listen, as the CAO, I have clear directions that I've been provided by council. Council has provided direction that we have a conditional support of a willing host. I've got direction to work and negotiate on a community benefit agreement. Those are my directions. This was done a number of years ago, but this is not a new project. I'm really looking forward to being able for this project to actually start the environmental assessment. And I say start because they have not started yet. And that's going to be probably a 3-year process. And I've got a little bit more to add on to that, but I just want to be crystal clear from a staff perspective. We're taking our direction from council, and the overall, safety and well-being of the community is our #1 priority. It was staff's thought to do this community social economic community readiness study. We're 5 years late on that study. That's why we've put this as a priority. We're trying to catch up. So it's just, I don't take anything personal, believe me. But it's just, we're trying to move this thing along. And again, please pay attention to this environmental assessment review, because the concerns about the environment are best suited through IAC because that's what the assessment, that's what that review is going to be focusing on. And then you got ISO who's going to be focusing on the financial side of it, not the municipality. Thanks.
The Deloitte report, the social economic, when are we expecting that?
So the first draft that we're looking at is hopefully going to be mid-March. They are moving, they've done a significant number of the stakeholder interviews already and just wrapping up that. And then the last ones, if you haven't already, you'll be seeing invitations to do an interview with Deloitte over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Sorry, yeah, we're still in the committee portion, so it just hold on, Paul. Yeah. Okay. Okay, is there anything else on the Ludington visit that we should cover? Nope. Okay, so if we can move on then to I guess the verbal report from the CAO on the impact assessment.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
wait.
Pardon the interruption. We do need a motion to accept the first report, please.
And we didn't have a mover and a seconder for the first report.
Oh, can get a motion to accept the first report. Yes, Bob, and a seconder? Shirley, all in favor? We're accepting the
And
report.
then ask any opposed.
Any opposed?
Is this like their report to Lincoln? That we're
This, we're just accepting. Okay, one opposed. Okay, now we're moving on to the verbal report about the impact assessment agency application.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. This is relatively hot off the press. Right now, we have a date of February the 12th. IAC, which is the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, is looking at hosting their consultation at Meaford Hall. That's really all the information that I have right now. And I just want to be crystal clear. This is a meeting that IAC is putting on, not the town. So this is not TC Energy. This is not the municipality. This is not a public meeting of the municipality. This is the formal part of the formal process that IAC is putting on as far as consultation with the community. So I do know that we made the request that they have representatives from all of the branches that will have a say in this project. And to date, my understanding is there will be member representatives from each one of those branches. So I understand that IAC had come to this committee previously, maybe a year or so ago. I expressed my concerns that my understanding there were more questions that were raised after that. And thought it would be very beneficial if it was very, very clear that all those branches were there to hear all the different concerns. It will not be the only consultation piece, but this is the consultation that IAC has requested. So typically I wouldn't like for this to even be in a municipal facility because it's not, I don't want this to have any appearance that the municipality has anything to do with this because it's the review process. However, Meaford doesn't have any really alternative locations to host a meeting that I'm very, very hopeful gets a very big turnout. So
If TC hasn't applied, why is IAC doing a meeting?
So again, I can't answer that other than I understood that the original plan was for the application from TC Energy was going to be made shortly in the new, like very much after the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
It hasn't yet. I'm not sure why, but I'm sure that IAC is trying to do this in a way that here's when they thought the application was going to be made, and they're trying to get facilities booked and those representatives from those different branches set up. So I'm sure potentially if this doesn't go, if the application isn't made, maybe this gets canceled. But I just wanted, this was a forum that I just wanted to identify that IAC has reached out. And I can't stress enough, it is their process.
And so this is a way to communicate with the community. And so that's February 12th. And the expectation is that it's held at Meaford.
Meaford Hall.
Meaford
Yeah,
Hall.
yeah.
Okay. And I trust there will be some announcement about it. when it's
IAC
more
will
formal.
have the required consultation piece.
Yeah.
We will also do some additional reach out. And again, I think it's a good opportunity for us just to reinforce the fact that this is not a municipal public meeting, that this is part of the formal process.
Okay. Any questions, CEO, on?
I have a question. Mind if I have it right? I don't know if this is the right time. I had a follow-up question from a previous meeting. Is this the later time or the right time?
I think that's in committee inquiries. Is that correct?
Okay, it's later.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that. Okay, so if there's nothing there, do I have to, even for a verbal report? Okay, so can I get someone asking us to accept this verbal report? Yes, we have, and a seconder, Harley. All in favor? All opposed? All right,
Got it.
got it. Thought I had this down. All right, standing items.
Changes.
Yeah, TCE and Son are not here. Okay, we've got the committee inquiries, and actually, Jenny, since you were just thinking of yours, why don't we do yours if you're ready?
Okay. I know at one of our last meetings, the CAO had mentioned he was going to circle back on the North Bay questions, and he was going to circle back on insurance. So I just wanted to follow up on those two items.
The insurance question is going to be something that Strategy Corp does some additional research on. With all indications that we had right now, there are no insurance concerns. My understanding was that TC Energy early days did a mail out to all of the neighboring residents to see whether or not like provide the concerns about the insurance. So one thought was, is that something that TC Energy needs to do again? I think that's something that from a municipality's perspective, we are also going to be including in the IAC submission. Because I get that is the other piece. The municipality is going to be in a position to take the concerns that we've heard and also submit them to IAC for the formal record. So those are things that IAC are going to have to respond to as well. But I will say if any individuals that have houses that are in close proximity, that they have had information from their insurance that says that any pump storage will eliminate insurance or cause issues with insurance, please provide that. Because that's the information that we need from the standpoint of those concerns being raised.
Where would the community provide that to this committee, or to they bring it to the February 12th meeting, or to where?
I would say
the best way to
both.
share it?
I would say both. I
Okay.
think IAC, it may take a bit for that information to be released, but if that's information that, you know, individuals feel comfortable with, they can provide that through this committee. And I'm sure be mindful of like their own personal information being protected, but if they have something from their insurance company that says that that's a legitimate issue, that would be extremely helpful, because the reach out that we've made, we haven't been able to get those answers. So, and the North Bay piece, there are sections within North Bay that do have the water restrictions, but it's not all of North Bay. So, yeah.
All had addressed too. I think they had, didn't they had is it the federal government had hid it too from the residents there, so yeah, there was concerns about that as well, I think.
One thing, because I've met a couple times with the military leadership up at the 4th Division, the material that they were using for extinguishing was heavily used in North Bay and not as prevalent in the 4th Division. So.
All right, Harley, do you have a committee inquiry?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as a matter of fact, it's not really an inquiry, but I do have a notice of motion that I'd like to put on the floor, and I will move that it be presented, and I'm hoping I'll get a seconder.
Seconded right here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to second, sorry, someone else. All right,
Okay.
Ginny.
Okay, I'll read the notice of motion if I may. Whereas TC Energy has expressed plans to build Canada's largest energy storage project, a 1,000 megawatt pump storage installation on the grounds of the 4th Division Training Center located within the municipality of Meaford. And whereas the waters of Georgian Bay will be used continuously to generate the electricity, and whereas the Meaford Pump Storage Advisory Committee has been established to discuss possible impacts of the project, both positive and negative. Whereas TC Energy has often mentioned the possibility of community benefits becoming available to the project's host municipality, and whereas the Council of the Municipality, with guidance from Strategy Core advisors, has been asked to compose a list of potential local benefits. Therefore, be it resolved that the Pump Storage Advisory Committee recommends that Council of the Municipality of Meaford include the following in a foremost community benefits request. Number one, that TC Energy, upon approval of their application by the necessary authorities, develop, finance, and carry out a 50-year rehabilitation plan designed to not only maintain the current status of Georgian Bay waters, but to consistently improve and enhance that same environment by attacking and reducing the intrusion of invasive species such as the zebra and quagga mussels, round goby fish and Asian carp, sea lampreys, spring water fleas, as well as invasive plants such as Phragmites and Cladophora. Number two, that TC Energy coordinate and conduct this long-term rehabilitation plan by working collaboratively with the appropriate provincial ministries and environmental organizations whenever necessary. And three, that TC Energy bring forward a biannual report on the status of the plan's continued endeavors and progress on the above activities. And be it further resolved that this recommendation be approved by the Pump Storage Advisory Committee and forwarded to council. And if I may just elaborate a little bit more on it. The primary reason I'm bringing this forward, Mr. Chair, is okay, we talked a few minutes ago about benefits, and for the last 6+ years, we've been hearing about benefits, benefits to, well, obviously there must be benefits to TC Energy, benefits to the Saugeenee Nation. I totally expect there will be some benefits to the Department of National Defense, and of course, benefits to the municipality of Meaford. The only component to this project that I haven't heard any benefits for is Georgian Bay, the waters of Georgian Bay. This is talking a 50-year contract for TC. The main factor involved here is Georgian Bay water. I mentioned about the invasive species, and there are problems in Georgian Bay. 50 years ago, sea lampreys and zebra mussels were just getting a toehold in the bay. Now they're rampant. The round goby fish, they're new. They're predators. These spring water fleas, they're not really a flea, but they apparently look like a flea. They look like a flea with a long thready tail. And apparently they gather in clusters, so they end up looking like a big bowl of jelly with a lot of tails. Yeah, these things apparently eat anything. Asian carp, we don't have Asian carp yet, although it depends upon who you talk to about it, but they're very near. These are 50, 60-pound monster fish that we can imagine how much they devour. Phragmites, like, up until about 15 years ago, we didn't have Phragmites. Now we get all kinds of Phragmites. TC has told us there's going to be no impact on Georgian Bay. It's going to be status quo. As far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be status quo. In the last 15 years, lake trout numbers have decreased 15%. We used to have muskies. We used to have, well, we still do have some pike, some bass, whitefish, which a long time ago, commercial fishermen made a living out of fishing whitefish, and they're gone. I really feel that in the name of environmental preservation and rehabilitation, this is a project that TC needs to take on. They got a 50-year contract, come up with a 50-year plan for making the waters of Georgian Bay better, more pure, in enhancing the waters of Georgian Bay. When you talk about fishing, tourism, wreck and culture, benefits to the local tourism and local economy, this has to start with Georgian Bay. And so that's why I'm bringing this forward. I think it's something that can be done. It's going to take initiative. It's going to take money, but that's the kind of legacy I want to see left behind, thanks to this project. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Harley or anything like that? No? Yeah, Bob?
Two areas of questions here. The first one is, controlling the negative, controlling the invasive species. I'm in agreement with the principle. I don't know if that's a comprehensive list. I really, quite frankly, don't recognize a couple of things, but I trust that you've done your research on that. And I recognize that this is only a start because council will debate this as well. And then it'll be negotiated as part of the community benefits agreement. So I don't need to stop it at this point with that comment. The other thing, though, that's missing from this, in my mind, is the alternative, which is the promotion of fish habitat. So as much as you're stopping the invasive, you may wish to also have an eye on how to promote fish habitat. So you may look at it and say, is there an opportunity that each of the towers becomes an artificial reef? Or some such other thing, so that you're playing both sides of it. You're controlling the bad and you're encouraging the good, so that we come out of it with an enduring fishery that's better 50 years from now than it is today. That's.
Thanks, Bob. I have no no objections to friendly amendments or additions to it. I was going to put something like what you're suggesting into it, but this has got to be. I mean, people will say, "Oh, well, this is simple. We'll just restock Georgian Bay every year with 50, 100,000, 500,000 small fish." Well, no, all that is feed and fodder for these predators. So, yeah, it needs to be a part of the parcel. I hear what you're saying, but and as I say, I don't object to something being added to it that will be useful, that will be productive. But yeah, again, unless we cut back on these creatures that are in there, I mean, it's quite possible in 50 years' time, if we don't take aggressive action against the predators that are in the bay right now, what enjoyment is it going to be for somebody to go out in their boat and look over the side into the water and see nothing but sea lampreys? I don't find that very inviting future. So, but I don't know. As I say, I'm not against adding. If you want to suggest a friendly amendment, in addition to what clauses I have here.
Yeah, please, Bob.
Thank you. Having just seen this tonight, as a, it's hard to come up with the proper wordsmithing right at this moment. If I was going to make a very brief suggestion to this, it would be to consistently improve and enhance the same environment by promoting a healthy fish and habitat, and by attacking and reducing. So I would just insert that in there, something about promoting the fish habitat just before you start talking about the invasive species. I really, I don't want to bog this down, because again, it's going to get wordsmiths at council. It's going to get wordsmiths in whatever agreements negotiated. But as a starting point, I strongly do agree that this is a good phrasing of one of the many concerns and issues that are surrounding this project. And this is the first we've seen of it. And I appreciate that you've done this.
Okay, so did we somehow capture that amendment that you suggested? I just want to make sure that we're approving what we.
If I may,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we can accept that as a friendly amendment if the mover is amenable to that. If you would like to just accept that, we can treat it as the main motion if you'd like.
Yes, I'm quite comfortable with that addition. Allison, thanks.
Thank you. So in that case, I would say that we would, where we get to consistently improve and enhance the same environment by, I would do A, attacking and then the remainder of that clause, attacking and reducing the intrusion of invasive species, and then followed by and B, enhancing the fish habitat for native species or something to that effect. Are we comfortable with that? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to say to Councillor Greenfield that I really appreciate you bringing this forward. I think this is really important. I do have a question for you, though. When we talk about Georgian Bay waters, are you talking about the entirety of Georgian Bay or in some vicinity in relation to the size of the project? I'm just thinking the whole of Georgian Bay is pretty big ask.
Well, immediately it would be our adjacent waters to our municipality, but I'm not sure that can you cleanse one part of Georgian Bay and not another. Like, to me, the effect. Yes, because all of this is coming forward because of the TC proposal. So obviously the TC proposal is of primary interest to our immediate area, although having said that, a number of our neighbors do have some interest in this proposal too. So I don't I think I would like it left just as Georgian Bay in general, because what is done locally is going to be beneficial to certainly to all southern Georgian Bay anyway. I don't know if that answers your question or not. It's to me, it's difficult to put a specific location on this, and I wondered about that when I was trying to develop this, and I thought, well, I think if we just take Georgian Bay as a whole, but again, it mentions 2 or 3 times in the motion that TC, so. Well, I think it's easy to identify where the most specific start would be. Again, it's a 50-year plan. Let's start locally, and if it can be expanded, then all the better.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to follow up with Councillor Greenfield. So I'm very much in favor of this. I'm just thinking of, of TC and, some clarity perhaps being needed. If this goes forward to them, we want them to say, yes, we're going to do this. But if they're thinking that they have to go around the whole coast of Georgian Bay and do whatever mitigation is required to deal with these particular predators and so on, then I don't want to put them in a position where they say no to this. So perhaps we'll look to the CAO for some advisement here as to how we structure the language to make sure that it's something they can say yes to. Sorry.
Full call.
Yeah. I think, through Mr. Chair, I think for the purposes of this committee, I think it's important that, because the mandate is the TC energy, to focus on the TC energy. But I think by keeping it as Georgian Bay, it may open the door, which I think is a good door to keep open, even at council, to address some other pieces, like some of the pieces like Phragmites. I can tell you that there are other municipalities more so than Meaford that have significantly more Phragmite problems than Meaford has. But that being said, for the health of Georgian Bay, Phragmites should be something that we're actively trying to do. I would also say that maybe council, and don't know, I can't speak for council, there are other significant users and impacts to water taking in Georgian Bay that maybe this extends to those other groups to say, as a collaboration, there should be more done for the health and sustainability of Georgian Bay. Because I can think of one industry that takes an awful lot of water that may be something they should be coming to the table for water quality as well. So, but again, leaving it as Georgian Bay, I think, is something that leaves a door that should be left open.
All right, so with that and the amendment, can someone help me with what we're supposed to do procedurally? Yeah.
So you have a mover. Did you have a seconder yet for that motion? Yes. Okay, so we've had a
Yes.
seconder, so we'll just call the vote if you are willing.
Can I get a vote? All in favor? All right, any dissension? There's none. All in favor? Good. Passed. Thank you. Okay, and then another committee inquiry. I'm gonna present one on behalf of Adam Vaughn, who asked me to present this on his behalf. He obviously can't be here today. So to the PSAC committee, I apologize for my absence, but would like to bring a matter forward for discussion and your consideration. At our last meeting in November, I asked the question to the CAO in regards to the FAQs in regards to the pump storage project and related items. The answer I received was that staff was intending to leave this up to TCE to provide a platform for, and they would handle the addition of new items to this. I do not find this to be in the best interest of PSAC and the community. Waiting on TCE to create or add items that our community deem important is not something that should be left up to a corporate entity that has its own motives to control the dissemination of information. Also, there may be items that could affect this community, but TCE has no involvement in, so why would they add it to their FAQ? Procedures for water testing is one example that I can think of that our community should have readily accessible answers to, but in the end, it has little to do with TCE. In saying all this, I would like to bring forward the following motion to pass on as a recommendation to council. The Pump Storage Advisory Committee passes the following recommendation to council: to direct staff to start collecting, cataloging, and publishing, whether that be through a web page on the municipal site, regular email updates, or other readily accessible way, the questions posed in relation to the pump storage project with accompanying answers. I am not entrenched in the wording of this motion and will welcome amendments for alterations. I simply do not think that letting TCE control the only source of answers is what our community wants. If TCE would like to make sure that the information published through this is to their satisfaction, we should welcome their continued involvement in providing full and detailed answers to the questions brought forward to the committee. Thank you, fellow members, for taking time to consider this in my absence. Adam Vaughn. So I was not at the November meeting, but as I looked back and rewatched it, so it's really a question of gathering all of the questions and then the municipality providing answers to the community's question rather than relying on TCE. And at this point, I believe we are relying on TCE, and I think Adam is wanting to change that. Are there any questions with that? Okay, so if I could, I'm just going to read the actual recommendation that he wants to pass on to council. The Pump Storage Advisory Committee passes the following recommendation to council: to direct staff to start collecting, cataloging, and publishing, whether that be through a web page on the municipal site, regular email updates, or another readily accessible way, the questions posted in relation to the pump storage project and accompanying answers. That's something anyone on the committee would like to second in sending to. Oh, yes.
If I may, I'm sorry. Because Adam's not available and because you're in the chair, neither of you are able to move that motion. And so we could take either a mover and a seconder for the motion, or you could step out of the chair to move the motion. It's up to you.
Can I get someone else that would like to move? And yes, Bob?
I would so move.
Thank you. So I need a seconder then. Ginny, all right. All in favor?
Oh, wait to see if there's any discussion.
Is there any discussion?
I kind of just had a technicality, like, would that mean the town would use like an employee that they get reimbursed from TCE to set that up? Like, you know how you guys get funds for what it pulls from the municipality? So there'd be like a point person that's in charge of that and that can be reimbursed from them, kind of thing. As an act, like, I'm trying to think how you guys can afford to do that, but.
Surely.
Mr. Chair, if I may, and the CIO may want to chime in. Yeah, we'd have to figure out what that looked like. And we'd also have to determine, because some questions that would come in, we may not have the answers to. So that information then would have to be garnered from TC and brought back to publish. So we'd have to, look at who was going to be responsible for that. We have an excellent communications department, but they're very busy as it is. And I know Allison and the clerk's department are also very busy. So we would have to determine whose responsibility that was going to be and, where those answers were going to come from, because I think a good portion of it would very likely was going to have to come from TC Energy, would be us asking them and then publishing whatever that response is. So we'd have to have some understanding just of how that would work. And again, I would look to the CAO for process on that.
Through Mr. Chair. So right now, the municipality does have an FAQ for the pump storage on the website. So we can be reimbursed. So we do have that cost recovery, which includes communications. So we do, like I say, we do include the FAQs on our website. People can subscribe to the website. So anytime that a new FAQ is added, anybody who's taken the time to actually subscribe will get that update. But to the deputy mayor's point, there will be the technical questions that we won't have answers to, that we would rely on going to TC Energy for. And then I will also say that, the IAC process will also be like, that is one that will also provide responses to the questions, which we won't get. But like when it comes to the environmental aspect, we're at a point we're going to rely heavily on IAC to provide that. So happy to put the FAQ questions. I actually like the idea of like the cataloging of the questions. We've already done that. So if people want it added to our website to see all the questions, there just may not be answers to those, but I think it's to see what people are asking, I guess.
Yeah, Jenny?
I think it would be helpful too to have dates on them, just because information changes over time and
Yep.
it can be at least documented. It was asked, 4 years ago or now or whatever, because I think it has to be of the understanding that it's what we know now, because things change. So at least there's some documentation of the community's involvement and where we're at.
Yeah, and the answers at a point in time. Yeah. So are you recommending an amendment to this to add that in?
Trying to complicate things. I'm just saying,
you
the
did.
little date column would be.
Through
Recommendation with
personal relations company answers, and maybe is it just an addition at the end, including date reference? So if you could make that motion.
Including date reference. I don't know how to say it.
somebody else second that.
Yeah.
Bob will.
Yeah.
I have believed since this committee was formed, and I was lucky enough, I suppose, to be invited to be on the committee, that the value in people coming up with positives and negatives is it forms a checklist of a successful project. No matter how outlandish or harsh or whatever the judgment was of somebody making a protest to me, I looked at it and went, I have the same question. And if it's satisfied, if it's easily satisfied, then great. And if it's not so easily satisfied, or it's not satisfied for years to come, it doesn't get lost. And I think it's an incredibly important part of the process. This FAQ portion, the questions and the responses, the answers, and the brainstorming that goes into some of that is how we keep the public informed. We will change minds one way or another. We will enlighten people one way or another. We will change the basic structure of the project, maybe. I mean, the idea of the towers and the soaker hose idea out in the water came about apparently from feedback to questions from the public. So I've said to a whole bunch of people who've asked me, are you for or against this project? And I said, it needs to develop. We need to follow the process. But each time you come up with a thing that you think is, this is bad and this is important to me and all those other things, I said, it's important that build out the checklist. If the FAQs is the way that we communicate the information to people to say, yeah, we had the same concerns. It was raised 3 years ago. And as it stands, this is the way we're going to mitigate that. I think that's really hugely important to community support. Or, if the project fails ultimately because of something, then it explains why. So I like the motion and I like the process. I do have, two thoughts going through my head real quickly, which is who is the traffic cop that decides what to get posted? Do we have, a final say as to who posted it? And I don't want to disparage anybody, but if a mid-level person in the municipality had that responsibility, I think that's too much for them. There may be a mechanism that somebody needs to sort out to say it goes all the way to the CAO and this is approved by the CAO. There must be some process of that type. And the other thing that's interesting to me, it may be interesting to say that this response is identical to the one you'll find on the TCE website, or this one varies from TCE and we have an opposing opinion. My mind wanders. I wonder what that looks like, because we may contend something or have an open item and they think they've resolved it. And I don't know how that works. So I'll just put that out there for thought.
Is there more discussion?
Yeah, maybe the author of the answer also noted, just so that if there's a different answer from another party, it can be noted where that answer was derived from.
So you're making another amendment?
Maybe Adam wants that amendment. I don't know. But just so the date and who it came from. So it's like when you're doing an assignment, you would have your footnotes of where you received your information from, same as if you're a child in school.
Yep. So the amendment would be including date and author reference? Or source?
Source.
Yeah, there we go. Date and, yes.
I just wish to clarify author of the response rather than author of the asker.
Yeah. Author of the response. So we know, did it come from TC or was this a third party that had different factual information? Just so we know where did it come from IESO? Did it come from where? Yeah.
Thanks, just so I capture the intention.
I think we were at the seconder.
Yes, we need a second.
We need a seconder of that motion. Thank you, Howard. All in, we need more discussion, more discussion. Okay,
So now we're going to be all in favor of the amendment,
all in favor of the amendment. The second amendment?
the second.
The second amendment.
All in favor of the first amendment. I forget if we did that. All in
I
favor
think we
of the
did, but
First amendment, we did that, then all in favor of the motion overall.
As the amendments came from the same person and sort of share the same general theme, I think we can treat them as one. They had the same seconder as well, so just one amending motion
cut
and
my
then
work in half. Thank you.
Done.
if you're able just to call the vote for the main motion, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor? Pass. Great. Thank you. Okay. We are moving on to communications. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments or thoughts or concerns with the members of the committee, the public can send an email to pumpstorage@meaford.ca. When the emails are received to this address, they'll be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to the committee members prior to the meeting. Cover sheet of this list will be included in each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. I believe we received 2 pieces of correspondence, both from Laura Simmons. I trust everyone on the committee had an opportunity to review those. There's a helpful video and a question about following the money. Okay, are there any TCE? Sorry, are there any comments or about that correspondence? No? Okay. Any TCE correspondence? I do not believe so. And then the last one is member Ginny Ellis, pump storage questions, which you've included. And I think we talked about earlier, we're going to get a written response from staff, right? Okay. All right, well, thank you. We're going to move on to public questions. So thank you to all of those that have joined us for today's meeting. And to ensure that as many people as possible can speak during the 15-minute public question period, I'll ask that anyone who's not given their name to staff to ask a question, please do so. I think I've now got that. As a reminder, each person's allowed to ask one question and one follow-up question. Questions will be captured by staff, and all the questions, I ask that you keep them in the purview of the committee. So with that, I think Paul Young is up.
Good evening, everyone. Well, glad to be back. I had one, this is entitled comments and questions. So I had one comment, and that is that I feel as though the town of Meaford and the council and this committee in particular has been placed in the position of Mark Carney with what's been going on lately. In other words, when you signed up for this job, the pump storage project was not there, and all of the politics and all of the difficulties of understanding technology and everything wasn't there. And this has been dumped on you, and it's quite it's a 600-pound gorilla. And I appreciate that, you know, the impact on the town dealing with the perception of whatever the perception is, has been difficult. So I compliment you on it. It's a lot of hard work, and I'm seeing signs of sunlight, but that's all. Anyway, the question I have, I had 4, and I've been told there's only 1 allowed. So how will the communication to the public, I didn't understand the phrase, the branches that are going to be present at the January 12th meeting. I didn't know what branches was. And so I just accidentally found out about this January 12th, or Feb 12th, this Feb 12th meeting. And so I really don't understand who's invited and how the communication is getting out to the rest of the town, because it is an opportunity for people, you know, valid questions or fearful questions or rumor questions. They've got them. And I support Bob's comment. This is an extremely valuable investment, answering questions. So how are the people going to find out about this situation, or are they? And if that's my only question, then I'll save the other 3.
Just if I want to make sure though, that it's specific to the February 12th IAC meeting.
IAC meeting. That's what that's specifically what I'm asking about. Yeah.
Okay. I think actually we're not always going to provide answers, but I think in this one we may be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Same as what I said before, that IAC will be sharing the information once we get confirmation of the date from IAC and everything. Then we will do an outlet of information as well. But the 4 branches are ISO, like the province, the feds, then IAC, of course, will be there. And my understanding, D&D will be there as well. So
they're the recipient branches. Now I understand.
So,
yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the February 12th date, just so I'm clear, is planned, but not
fluid.
Yeah, fluid until they do their application.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the we in that answer was PSAC or the council or the town. We will be getting that information out. I didn't know who we was.
Oh, yeah.
As staff, that would be the town.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Grisinda. Well, that never happens. Thank you. Okay. And then Laura Simmons. Nope. Yeah.
You obviously have received my question on paper because it's been around since November, but I think I'd like to read it aloud. I've also learned about these lanes recently, IAC and ISO. I've also lived through the current government with Metrolinx and the Green Belt and a few other things. So the fact that we're following these lanes doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. My name's Laura Simmons and I'm a full-time resident in the municipality. And I've got a request of this committee. TC Energy built 650 kilometers of pipeline that by 2023 cost them 14.5 billion. That takes a product, moves it to the customer and sells it at a profit. I get it. Near Ouarzazate in Morocco, the Noor solar powered project cost them US 9 billion, but it produces 580 megawatts annually, enough to supply 1.5 million people. I get that too. This storage facility is ballooning to 7 billion to move a product from one place to another at a considerable loss of volume of the actual product. We've heard today it could be, 25% or even more. It's an inefficiency factor. Therefore, no profit. As I understand it, TCE Energy investors get paid. Government, i.e. us, the taxpayer, investors, contribute. I, the retail end user, will be paying for this product at an unknown cost. And we've been discussing the benefits to the community. Presumably TCE is supposed to kick this in. Where do they get that money from? So ultimately, where is the money all coming from on a product that you're not making? You're moving it at a loss from place to place. I don't get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And then there's virtual. What are we to do with virtual?
So if you call them by name, then our AV helper in the back will unmute them and then they can come on and ask their question. You'll hear them, but you won't see them.
Cool. All right. So Amanda Greenfield signed up for a question. Amanda.
I am here. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello. Okay,
Hi,
we can hear you.
thank you. Okay, my comments are based on the Ludington visit report and based on the discussions throughout. The municipality of Meaford is an active rural agricultural that holds vast environmental ecosystems. It champions fishermen and aquatic endeavors. In addition, we are a beautiful area for tourism attractions. Staff nor council have the authority to trump up and engorge Meaford to what we are not. And frankly, what the residents do not want. This leads me to the punny comments by Miss Keaveney of Ludington residents, not be bothered, quote, not knowing what is going on regarding Ludington. Those comments do not mean knowledge, nor factual evidence that there isn't any concerns by residents from Ludington or concerns by professionals. To be clear, not knowing does not equate to being okay. This brings me to the questions to the CAO, as he indicated that during Roma conference last week in Toronto, that the CAO found that there is a connection with Bruce Nuclear Power Plant, and specifically mentioning Bruce C is to be linked with TransCanada Energy's proposed pump storage project. Would this now change the willing host vote? And furthermore, greater reason to review by bringing these new informations and details back to our community. As strongly, current conditional agreement should be eradicated, as this project seems to have greatly changed and needs to be shared with the municipality of Meaford and its residents. CAO, what is the procedure for this new shared information and process in regards to conditional agreement?
All right, thank you, Amanda. And so we've captured the question. Good. I guess next up is Louise Bucella.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Following the last meeting on November 13th, I wrote a letter to each member of council regarding the trip to Ludington. It was interesting. One individual responded and said that they chose not to go to Ludington because primarily that plant was irrelevant. And they would be very interested in seeing a pump storage project that was similar to the Meaford proposal. My question is two things, because I think we're comparing apples and oranges here. Was Ludington built on an active military base with contaminated soil and karst topography? Or what was Ludington built on? Was it farmland? What type of soil? I'm very concerned because of the effects of the runoffs that currently come down through Cedar Avenue. We happen to be adjacent to the largest culvert in that area. And the water runoff has changed dramatically in the last 21 years. And the silt that is going into the bay is, I am sure, is not helping the environment. That's my question.
Sorry, Louise, could you, just so I get it concisely, can you, exactly what's the question?
Oh, sorry. I'm just concerned. The report was very good, but there's no comparison to what is being proposed in Meaford as compared to Ludington. We're comparing apples and oranges here. It's limestone contamination, UXO versus clean farmland. So my question is, did anyone ask, a question about what the topography was like before they started the project? And secondly, how far is or are the farms or homes to the reservoir?
Okay, so I think I understand the question. So you're wanting to understand what the topography or geographic situation was in Ludington before it was a reservoir.
Yes, that was my letter.
Yeah, and is that similar to Meaford? Got it. Okay, thank you for your question. And then last online, I think we have Michael Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Ashmore here in Florida. I trust the weather up there is good. And by coincidence, I used to work for Deloitte and master's degree in economics and a CPA. Now retired, of course. And the question I have relates to Sun. How can they claim treaty rights to the range when it is when they're not a part of Treaty 18? The range, of course, is in Treaty 18, so it's a simple question. How are you claiming treaty rights to something you never signed? That is the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. Well, with that That is the end of our public discussion. Is there anything else that the members want to raise? Yeah, sorry.
Just on the microphone.
I'll ask on your behalf. So the question was, how are the answers to this going to be communicated to the people that are asking their questions? And staff has captured the questions and will actively respond to them directly.
Yeah, I would suggest that they'll be answered through either a mail or not a mail out, but on the FAQs, but they'll also be done through the next agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, the next meeting is February the 19th, just a 2-week cadence. And with that, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.